right, I think we are live, so here we go. All right. Well, hi everyone, and welcome back to Everything Expedition Live. I'm Tiffany Dent, travel advisor, explorer, and CEO of Tiffany Dent Dream Vacations. So, for those of you that are joining for the first time, this series gives you a front row seat to the world of expedition and purpose driven travel, connecting you directly with the people and projects shaping how we explore the planet with meaning and impact. So, each conversation is designed to inspire, educate, and help you see how travel can be both transformative and responsible. And today's episode is one that is especially close to my heart. We are heading to East Africa to explore a story that perfectly blends sustainability, community empowerment, and meaningful adventure. So joining me today is Bruce Hammond, yay, board president of the Maasai Girls Rescue Center, or MGRC, and a driving force of the creation of the Maasai EcoLodge Villas in Tanzania. So Bruce is an engineer and entrepreneur with a remarkable leadership career, I must say, Bruce. He's the founder and CEO of Growth Point, a B2B marketing services firm based in Michigan, and previously held executive roles with ABB and Rockwell Automation. So what really makes Bruce's story so inspiring is really what came next. And after reconnecting with MGRC founder Rick Morro, who is a longtime colleague and friend, and we're going to hear a little bit more about their backstory here, Bruce and his wife Joyce traveled to Tanzania in 2019, and what they saw there really changed them. So they joined the MGRC board, helping to provide critical business systems, marketing, and operational support to a mission that rescues at-risk Maasai girls and creates opportunity for education, empowerment, and independence. So today, as board president, Bruce helps lead this incredible initiative where the newly built EcoLodge and Villas provides sustainable income for the center, with 100% of the profits supporting the girls in the local community. So it truly is a living example of how travel, when really done right, can be a force for good. So I will be traveling to Tanzania myself very soon to experience the EcoLodge firsthand, and I'm super excited to share that journey with everyone. So today, Bruce and I are going to really dive into the vision behind MGRC and the EcoLodge, how they're really redefining what purpose-driven travel looks like in Africa, and how travelers can experience this incredible place firsthand, not just as visitors, but as partners in creating lasting change. So Bruce, it's such an honor to have you here. Welcome to Everything Expedition Live.
All right. Thank you very much. And thanks for the opportunity to talk to everybody today. So
Awesome.
let me see if I can't share my screen.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Let's
Hopefully.
see. I'm going to add a stage here.
I think you can. At any rate, it's a pleasure for me to be here today. As Tiffany said, I'm Bruce Hammond, and I have a number of different roles. I've had very successful careers in large corporations, and then decided to go off on my own about 25 years ago, and started up a successful marketing services and software business. And somewhere along the line, I think everybody has always had this when they're in corporate America. Somebody comes to you and says, you need to do a donation to United Way or to whatever cause that the company has signed up for at that time. And I've always been a little bit cynical of, am I really making a difference? Am I, whatever I'm giving, and I'd always, participate and so forth. But I always had that question in the back of my mind: is it going to, what percentage of this is going to the cause, and is it really making a significant difference? Well, I was, working in my company and came across a posting for an old friend of mine that I actually thought that he had died because I couldn't find him anymore. He seemed to, left the earth as far as getting a hold of him. He was retired from Rockwell. He and I worked together. He had lived in Arizona, and I wanted to hire him for a project, but we couldn't find him. And so I assumed that he had passed and couldn't find his relatives and so forth. But I'm sitting in a meeting, and all of a sudden it pops up a request that he needs funding for a cow. And I'm like, that seems pretty unusual.
This is how the story starts.
That's how the story starts. And so I'm like, Rick, if you knew Rick, you're like, there's no way he wants a cow. So I'm actually in a meeting in Washington D.C. and I was so curious. I'm like, at the first break I had, I got on the phone and I called him, and because there was a telephone number there, and we connected, and I'd learned that he had about 8 years earlier, about the time I was looking for him, had sold all of his possessions and his house, gave his kids and grandkids their inheritance, and he moved to the bush out in Tanzania. He went on a mission trip. In his retirement, he said, I got bored doing golf and fishing, and I wanted to do something more meaningful. So he went on a mission trip with the church, and that introduced him to, the ultra, poverty and so forth. And the situation was pretty dire at the time, still is, with the Maasai village that he was part of. And so he built a house out there. No electricity, no water, no anything. It was about 35 miles from any road. So he started working, saw the dire conditions, particularly for young girls.
Yeah.
They say you learn a lot from your mistakes, and he had a number of them over the years, trying to figure out how to start up a school and an orphanage, and those things all had failed. He was driven, and he basically decided one more time before he left the country, and came to he had a number of girls that he had rescued. The families had abandoned them, and so he found an old hostel that World Vision had built for a community, and then it was abandoned. And so he basically said to the community, if I refurbish this so somebody could live in it, these girls and staff, could we live there? And they said, fine. So he invested his own money, and he really didn't want to start up a charity. And so, because he really wanted to do things, his way, and not the traditional charity way. So he basically ran out of money. And he got to the point where he was trying to come up with a sustainable food source and needed some cows. And so, hence the GoFundMe on the cows and pinging me. So
did you pay for it? That we need to know.
Yes, I bought some cows. But I did better than that. I said, listen, you're not going to be able to scale this thing to any significance without some help.
Yeah.
And I'll provide the fundraising, B2B marketing. How hard can this be? It's much harder than B2B marketing.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, our company will provide the your websites and help tell your story and do the content creation and so forth. And so and I said, my wife and I are like to come out and visit and see what's going on and do a safari while we're out there. And so we did in 2019. We stopped in and visited him, and we basically crafted up at that time what kind of the pillars of an organization and where we want to go. And we decided on a couple of things that both of us were like minds of, we're here to solve a problem. Both of us are entrepreneurs and business people, and we look at problems a little bit differently than I think typical charities. In fact, I know differently than typical charities. I don't want to just create a charity that is going to be, have dependency on donors forever, because as soon as our current set of donors moves on, no longer interested, then you're kind of stuck. And typically what happens with children's homes and rescue centers is once the founders pass, like 90% of them fail. And the government's stuck with, now I have no safety net. We have, 20, 50, 100 kids in a defunct organization. What do we do? And so the government, particularly at that time, was not really friendly towards setting up rescue centers because they had to clean up afterwards.
Yeah.
And so he said, all right, so let's come up with some pillars of how we want this organization to run. Number one is um, any dollar that is donated to MGRC, 100% of it goes to the care of the girls. We are a volunteer-run organization. There are no employees. Nobody's taking a salary. That is providing if you will, the fundraising, the marketing, the management, the oversight, the governance, the board. Nobody is paying anything. In fact, they're all donors,
Mm-hmm.
and Rick included. The only people who will ever get paid will be the staff that's taking care of the girls. And so that was number one, volunteer only. Number two is transparency. If you give us $1, we'll tell you where the dollar went exactly. And we'll provide transparency as to how we're spending the money. And so we had there was no business processes in place. Obviously, we needed processes in business. What is it you need to do if you want to control results? Then you need to have measurements and metrics and feedback loops to make sure that you're headed towards those. So.
And I have to say, personally, I've got a, background in global health, public health, business, and now on the travel side. And you're exactly right in, typical nonprofits, they're not really set up as a business. So I can say I've seen firsthand how you all run that organization in the background, and it is extremely transparent. I think you can even tell, like, how many eggs a chicken had, or how many, where down to the letter, what is happening at the center and where is the money going.
Yeah, and one of the, it happened to be one of the main pillars of my company when we started it up some 25, 26 years ago, was we're going to do marketing services, but we're going to do it differently. Back then, marketing measurement wasn't really heard of. So we said, if you're going to put a nickel into marketing, we want to show the business results from that nickel.
Yeah.
And we had developed software applications to do that. And so we took that capability and that philosophy into MGRC. And so that was the other premise that we said. The last one was sustainability. And to us, sustainability meant something different than what it means to a lot of people. Sure, sustainability is important from an environmental standpoint, but what we were really focused on was financial sustainability.
Yeah.
How do we put something in place that can stand the test of time? And again, how do I solve the problem? Most charities, unfortunately, just create dependence.
Yeah.
And so we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to create dependency that the community would have with this organization to basically fund this activity for their good. How do we make it so the community can fund itself? How do we put in place and use in our entrepreneurial skills? How do we set up a business that will fund this organization? So that was our goals. We didn't know crap about running a charity. Certainly didn't know crap about how to run a rescue center in the third world country for a bunch of girls. But we figured it out. We partnered with an architectural firm that did community design. They're out of Australia, and we worked on a master plan. We knew that we needed to set up a business. We had to figure out what was that business going to be. We started down the path of it was going to be agricultural, because that's something easy to get into there. We learned from thinking this thing through that you can't make enough money selling to poor people. So we had to come up with something that was going to be of value to Westerners.
Yes.
And so it didn't take long to get to the point of, well, what's the number one business or I think it is the number one business in Tanzania, and that's tourism. So working with the architectural firm out in Australia, Clark Hopkins Clark, and they had a partner. The reason we chose them, that actually set up a number of organizations, sustainable organizations in East Africa, in Rwanda and Kenya. So they had experience in understanding some of the challenges. And we said, we want to set up a lodge, a high-end lodge. We will locate our lodge and our whole center in more of the center where the tourism is.
Mm-hmm.
We were not there initially at all. We were, a day's drive away. And so we looked, and it took us 2 years to find a piece of property. Buying property in a third world country is a little challenging sometimes. But we were able to, there's no real estate agent, there's no
Right.
realty.com to go to. It's who you know. The
No Zillow, right?
Yeah, there's no Zillow. There was nothing. It really was. There wasn't even real estate agents. But we kind of knew the area that we wanted to be in, which was an evolving town or an up and coming town that's kind of between a lot of the big national parks.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't. The town was just developing. There wasn't a lot of high-end places there. There's actually a shortage of them. So all we needed to do was to find property there. So we were very, very blessed, and we came across the piece of property that actually had a deed. Most property in Tanzania does not, which means it's a big, long government fight as to who's going to own it. And we purchased it. Rick and I scraped up the cash, and we bought the land. We then decided that we needed to move the girls and everything, because it was, like I said, it was a day's drive away into that area. And that's when COVID happened. And so the silver lining in COVID was it allowed us to find a hotel that had
Mm-hmm.
no customers. So we rented the whole hotel. We moved all the girls in there. They did the 8-hour trek
How many
across the
girls
country.
were there at that time?
Pardon?
How many
At
girls
that
were
time,
there?
there was, I want to say 40 to
Okay.
50. Um, and so we packed them all up and loaded them in trucks and the cows and everything, and we moved them. We found somebody in the area. Turns out it was the lawyer that we hired, that he could watch our cows for us. We needed the milk from those cows every day because that was the protein source for our girls.
Yep.
And so the first thing we did was we built a farm, because we needed a place for at least a minimum, a barn and so forth, that we could house our cows. But we went further than that. We took 3 acres and we basically turned it into an organic farm, with both cows, pigs, chickens, and rabbits, and of course produce and fruit trees and everything we started planting. So that was our first investment. After that, we knew we needed to invest into infrastructure, and our goal was to build a village.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we did. And so we put some infrastructure in place, some fencing, security, admin buildings, and so forth, electricity, water. There was undeveloped land, and it turns out that the land, as you'll see in some pictures here in a couple of minutes, was sitting on top of a valley, but the land started on top of the valley, but it was on the side of a valley overlooking it. And so, and it's actually the Rift Valley, the longest valley in Africa, goes straight across and starts in East Africa. So we basically bought that property, started building, and we, let me see if I can get a picture. And we developed the land. So this first part here was the center. We moved the girls into it. COVID had ended, and we very quickly built the housing and so forth to move them into it. And that was in 2022, the end of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the big building is our dining hall and kitchen. The front building is admin. We built a vocational school and a preschool, and then the volunteer house, and then the girls live in the houses there. And at this point, we had about 75 girls.
And
And you
Bruce,
asked,
what are the ages?
we have them from 3 to 21, probably 22. And where the girls come from,
Yeah.
there are no safety nets there in that country. And so what'll happen is there'll be some sort of incident that will happen. A girl runs away from a forced marriage, or she's orphaned. Parents die, or the parents abandon her. The other thing that happens, particularly all these girls come from the bush. 99% of them are Maasai. If there's a medical issue, Some of them very treatable medical issues. They're ostracized and essentially they're not going to survive. They go to the witch doctor twice and you don't come back after the second time. And so a lot of our early girls were runaways, and the police would bring them to us. Um, some of them were orphaned, and their grandmothers were taking care of them, and they were no longer able to. Some of them had huge medical issues. Well, we wouldn't consider them huge. To them, they were. We had one that had epilepsy, and she kept having epileptic seizures, and she would get into the fire, because they always have a fire going there, and she had burns all over her body. And somebody at a medical facility that she was taken to knew us, and so she's with us. The police will bring girls with that have been trafficked or sexual abuse. We've got a 3-year-old that was raped by her uncle. It's
horrific.
It's horrific.
Yep.
So, and each one of our girls has a story, and they have one thing in common: none of them actually ever went to school. We believe education is certainly one of the things that's important, and so we first stabilize the girl. We do the research on them as to is there a way they can have a family take care of them? If not, then or if their safety is a significant thing, then we basically will take them permanently. We have legal custody of the 75 girls we currently have.
You do?
So
okay.
They are our girls to raise. We keep them linked to extended family members where possible, and because we want them to, once they age out and that they have a path they can go to, they still have a relationship with where they came from. So,
but I think you mentioned too, even on school breaks, right? If it's deemed safe for them to go back and visit their family, stay with their family for that break, they're able to do that, right?
Right. It's a combination of two different things. It's as long as it is a safe situation, they weren't rescued because of abuse,
right,
type of thing. Then yes, and there's somebody will take responsibility for it. The government actually pushes us very hard towards that. Sometimes too hard. And that we argue on the girls' behalf that we don't think it's a safe situation. They do, and unfortunately, we've been proven right a few times. But but we do have a good relationship with the government. The government is actually very, very supportive of us, to a point where they've asked all the other children's homes, at least in the Arusha region, which is a pretty big region, that they should mimic what we're doing. And the things that really caught their attention was that we have processes in place, that we have an individual plan for every girl, which I'll show you in a minute, and a path. And we also have a path towards sustainability, that even if someday I'm gone or Rick is gone, that we will this thing will still fund itself. So that's kind of a quick background. The rescuing of the girls is actually the easy part, believe it or not. Developing the girls into young, independent women that are have a financial future, that's much harder. We've had some graduates. A lot of the girls that come to us older, let's say that they're 12, 14 years old, runaways, then they've never been in school.
Right.
They'll graduate when they're like 30 from high school. So our plan
is to get them to start that at that age is probably more difficult than if you get them younger. Yeah.
Yeah. An academic path is, particularly for women, something under 30% of girls ever get to secondary school. Girls in the bush, I'd say it's 1% ever get to secondary school. And their education is that once it gets to the primary school is complete, they take a standard 7 national test, and they have to pass that to go to the next level of school.
And what grade would that, or equivalent?
Considered about 7th grade.
7th grade, okay.
Like middle school.
Okay.
And So out in the bush, nobody, boys or girls, ever get to that level. And so we obviously think it's really important. We bring the girls in, we develop a plan. There's a type of school called MEMQA that will take somebody in and basically start them at the ground zero and see how far that they can take them. And so we will enroll them into those schools if they're too young, or if they're too old rather, for to get into first grade, for example, or kindergarten.
Right.
And we'll work with them. But our strategy is not to go down an academic path. We want to get them to a standard 7 capability, and then we want to take them to a vocational school and teach them a career. And
give them the skills to get out of this situation and have some
right.
pathway
have some
for
options.
longevity here. Exactly.
Yeah. And Rick and I, we talk every day. And one of our topics is a hot topic that gets discussed a lot. Is you can bring them the animals to the water, but you got to get them to drink, and you got to get them motivated that they want to change. And that's actually very difficult. But that is one of our one of the things we spend a lot of effort on. All of our girls have some sort of trauma. So we have to deal with that. The younger ones, it's much easier, believe it or not. Again, because they're a little more moldable. The older ones, we want to give them the option. If you want to go back out to the bush and live that life, you understand what it is. That's okay, but we're trying to motivate them to do better. And at least we'll educate them with enough of hygiene and birthing type stuff, education, so that they'll reduce the likelihood that they'll die during childbirth.
And what do you, just based on your years of experience there, what do you think that lack of motivation to actually want to change or move forward with that, especially as they're a little bit older, if they decide they do want to go back? Is it just the family ties, that's what they're used to, or they haven't really seen someone like them, a woman that has a successful path beyond what they've seen in their community?
It's a combination of both those things, but certainly having role models is critical to us. And so having volunteers and showing the girls there's a bigger world out there. These people, these girls, have never left. Think of this: within a kilometer of where they were born. Again, not even a road, not a building. That's their world. One of the first things we do, obviously, is when we drive them to our center, and that could be like a 6-8 hour drive. They're amazed that wow, there's a city and there's buildings that aren't made of sticks. And we usually take them someplace to have something to eat, which is something they don't normally do there, believe it or not. The way the pecking order works in the Maasai culture is that the men eat first, then the boys, the wife, if there's anything left, and they have multiple wives, she gets fed, and then the girls get fed. But usually the animals, the cows and the goats are competing for that same. So they may go for a week or two without getting any protein source. No, certainly not meat. Maybe get a little bit of goat milk. And they basically lived off of beans and corn meal, what they call ugali. And so we feed them. We start showing them and try to build a vision for them that they could actually do something different, and motivating them that and giving them the confidence. That's the challenge. I think it's more of a confidence thing than it is motivational. But so we've had some that made the choice to reunite to where they came from. Again, that's their choice. We're not going to hold somebody past or that doesn't want to come or doesn't want to stay rather if they're old enough. But we also offer them a path of vocation, finding them a job, and hopefully setting them up to be independent. So that's kind of the story of our girls. We have them all in school. again, the vision was to create a whole village where we can not only raise the girls but create a business that will
Hmm.
fund this whole thing. And so that's what we did.
And
Um,
I think that's one of the most, I mean, obviously, all the work that you and Rick are doing is incredible. But I think sort of this next step in the journey, right, of having the Eco Lodge built, from what
yep,
I know, and I know you and I've
yep,
talked about this, I don't know that there's any other organization in the world that is doing what you guys are doing, where, you have the luxury Eco Lodge, you're going to have the Western travelers. It's right there in the whole village, but then those profits are going to go to support the girls. And the
right,
goal being 100% donor free.
right,
Again, to combine that charity with that business aspect, I don't know of anything else out there that exists. So this is such an incredible model that you guys have put together, and I'm
yeah. The
just
first,
excited to be somewhat of a small part of it.
well, the one of the first things we did was, as I said, we put in processes. I'm a big process guy.
Yep.
And then let's put systems in it that measure the process. So our goal was, years ago, we're not going to spend a single shilling without knowing where it went.
Mm-hmm.
We're and we set up a model that said how we're going to finance ourselves was get sponsorships from donors of a girl on a per girl basis. So every girl hopefully had a sponsorship. We set the goal to be about $180 a month was what the sponsorship cost, and we look for people who want to have a relationship with these girls. And I say we're all, we're like probably 90% of our girls are sponsored. But again, we try to get the sponsor and the girl to interact. And so we create a portal. We set up Zoom meetings and so forth. Again, this is part of it's important for the girls' development.
Mm-hmm.
Also, from the sponsor, they see that where their money is going, they actually can
Absolutely.
put a name to it.
Yep.
And so again, this is what a dashboard looks like. It's real time. This is as of today. And we're running a little bit high. Last 12 months, we're about $190 a girl. We know that we need to focus on getting some of the costs down. Most of those costs are because we've got added employees on our side, on the MGRC side, that belong on the Eco Lodge side, which are about to be transferred over, and that'll bring it back into. But we know where all the money is going. If we, is it in facilities? It's in education. It comes in big spurts when you're paying tuition and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
We know how much the farm cost us. We know how much, for example, the eggs cost us. Is it cheaper to buy eggs, or can we produce eggs ourselves cheaper? Turns
Mm-hmm.
out that we can produce them cheaper, but we can't actually grow chicken up into, as a protein source. Make fryer or develop into roasted chicken. It was cheaper to buy chicken meat than it was to feed them. And so we stopped doing that. So everything we do is measured.
Yep.
Everything that we do is, has got some sort of process behind it. Even to the point of, for example, in the farm, um, as she said, I know how many eggs were produced this last week, or today rather, at
Okay. How,
68,
how
by
many
the way,
were how many were done today?
68.
Six.
We know how many liters of milk. And we measure this daily. And so these are, and and so you go into our barn, you talk to our farm manager there. He's got a record on every dairy cow that we've got. Knows what the production of that dairy cow is and why it's up and why it's down, what we fed them and so forth, to try to optimize it. We get on average about 10 times the output of milk from a cow than all the other farms in the area. I mean, we use zero grazing. What we feed the cows is a fodder that we grow hydroponically. And so I don't say we're using like super modern techniques and so forth, but it's just blocking and tackling. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
what works. What do we need to do? How do we improve it? How do we put in some plants just take a long time. Our farm, which is on 3 acres, including where the cows and the chickens and the rabbits and the pigs are, produces almost 100% of our food for our girls. So the 75 girls, we have a staff of 25, and also the lodge. And so, in three
Well,
acres, we're extremely productive as a farm.
and just to kind of hit on this a little bit, and I know we're going to get into the EcoLodge and the travel component of that here, a
Mm-hmm.
little bit later in the conversation. But I think when, someone is considering, traveling, right, to Africa, to a destination, to go to a place like this and to have a experience and, vacation, if you want to call it that, it's a big investment for people. So to know that they are helping to support an organization that
Yep.
actually on the business side, right, they can really
Mm-hmm.
see where their dollars are going to go. I think that's incredible. And I think that's very unique in an organization like this. So I think you
It's
have
very
just
fulfilling that you're being part of this.
yeah, and I think you have this incredible rise of purpose-driven travel where people do want to experience travel in a certain way, still at this sort of luxury level, but they also want to make an impact. And there is not a lot of solutions out there where you can do both and
Mm-hmm.
you can actually feel good about who you're supporting and how transparent it is from and how well run the business side is. I think that is incredibly unique, and I think that's also what's going to make the EcoLodge so successful once people really know the full story behind it, how they
Yep.
can get involved, how they can support, and where their impact is really showing up.
Yeah. They're as I said earlier, we have every girl has a plan. Every girl we have
Yep.
records on. We computerize everything. So in this case, Dora, um, we know what's the educational plan, where is she in that, how's she doing in Bible studies, what kind of career activities she likes working with the animals, and then how's she doing in school.
Mm-hmm.
And we put down every report card is logged into the system, and how is she doing. So she is 7 out of a class of 76. So she's in the top 10 of the class, and I would say that the our girls that are in primary school right now, we make up about 80% of the top 15% of the class. We have tutors on site. We do computer-based training to fill in the gaps. We take education very seriously.
What's
But
her story? How did she get to you
um,
guys?
hold on, I'm not sure. She was forced to live with a lady in Longita who sexually abused her. The neighbors contacted local welfare authorities who brought her to us. Um, and so I think the goal was is that she was being brought to a place where the parent or the grandmother thought she was going to be safe, and then they lose touch of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, this happens a lot, way too much. It is a great story. Kelly is her sponsor, and what Kelly sees is a portal as to what's going on with the girls or her girls specifically, um, and and she happens to sponsor 2 girls, so she sees how she's doing in school, and probably more importantly, she sees pictures um, of her she's developing. And this week she was actually there visiting or staying at the Eco Lodge and getting to know her personally. So
Oh,
this was a trip of a lifetime
that's
for Kelly. So the to actually spend time with the girls and so forth, and she was teaching them how to swim. So some of the pictures were very heartwarming. Um, the so that's kind of the vision of the in general. To get to the lodge, luxury lodge, in order to pay for MGRC, it has to be a luxury lodge because we needed enough profits to be able to pay for it.
yep.
We're hiring local people, local managers, local staff. We use the lodge, or we're going to use the lodge, it's just opening, as a training ground for our girls who want to go into hospitality. We have a number of girls right now that are in a vocational school for baking.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect that they will be our bakers. We have some of the girls that have expressed a lot of interest in working in the housekeeping and the
Mm-hmm.
front desk and so forth. So So that's it's also going to be a source for our girls for a future career and certainly
Yep.
training ground. Um, this would not exist if it wasn't for MGRC. MGRC owns the lodge.
Hmm.
And a lot of people say that, oh yeah, we give back to the local community. I guess it's the difference between how who's more committed to breakfast, the chicken or the pig. This is the pig. We are committed. We are the whole purpose here is to support the girls, and we make that part of our program. The people who stay get to meet the girls. The girls love to entertain and sing and do traditional dances, and they typically will see that when they come. The main lodge building, we're built on a beautiful valley. We went with a Maasai theme as the construction and the design. Eating, the meals and so forth. If you're eating inside or outside, you have a spectacular view of the Rift Valley, and so it's a great place. In fact, I think it's better to show pictures
These
than
are
it
like
is
some
talk.
real, so everyone who's, watching this, depending on when they're watching it, this is truly a sneak peek into a firsthand look at this because this is just opening right now. And these
Just
pictures, from
opened
what I
this week.
understand,
Yep.
yeah, are coming in live from the guests that are staying there.
Yeah, these pictures came from the people who were staying there.
That's awesome.
And so you can see the dining room, the main lobby, or the dining room. Let's see if we can, the food is brought up, and we've brought in a professional chef. It is it is farm to table. All that fruit that's sitting on that table is grown locally on our farm. You get the opportunity to walk across the road and see the farm.
You
And
couldn't get more
so
farm to table.
you can't get much more farm to table than this. In this case, even the chicken came from us. But the avocados, the what is that, eggplant,
Hmm.
and so forth, cucumber, that all came from the farm. That's 100% on that plate. Um, some of the proteins, beef, for example, we use our cows for milk, not for beef. So that's brought in. Fish is we buy from local suppliers. But all produce comes from our farm. When you look at the grounds, there's obviously a nice swimming pool. Um, we've landscaped it beautifully. We've got these concrete. We found an artisan who makes these concrete animals. It's really pretty cool, and you'll see those kind of scattered throughout the facilities. There's a giraffe. There's a couple of zebras floating around here someplace. So
Well,
there's
I know you mentioned a story too, and you're kind of talking about a lot of these girls obviously have never gone, a kilometer from their home
right,
and, let alone experience things like a swimming pool. So I think
right,
you were saying like when the pool got built, they didn't even really know what to do, right? Like, do we just
yeah,
get in? What happens here? So
exactly. In fact, teaching the girls how to swim. To them, that's where they're from. You would certainly never, it's a very arid area, and there is no lakes and so forth. There's a rainy season, but anytime that there's water, that means there's also, animals pooping in it. So
yep.
they wouldn't even think of it getting in. And in fact, they don't even. We had to teach them how to take showers or baths. That wasn't something that they do out in the bush. But yes, it's um, working with them on the pool and so forth. It's been a lot of fun. The guests stay in these villas, and each villa is set up to be private, and so you have your own bedroom, beautifully landscaped. This is the entrance to one. The door going into it. You can see that they're very nicely pointed on the inside. Um, the Typically it's going to be either a king bed or two single beds, depending upon your preference. Um, and they have the desk. They have a patio or a lanai, depends where you're from, what you call it. That overlooks the valley. Bathrooms are very well appointed. Nice big shower in them. Um, It's got a thatched roof that looks pretty cool from the inside. They are air conditioned. This is the view
It's incredible.
on a cloudy day on that back patio, or that back deck. So it is they're truly beautiful, um, scenery around it. The evenings, because of the direction we face, have spectacular sunsets. And so somewhere along here will be a picture of a sunset. There you go.
Incredible.
But having a drink on the patio is always a great experience, and just enjoying the sunset, the fire place, or fire pit rather. For the guests, they get the opportunity to meet up with the girls. In this particular case, she's playing with the Legos with the girls. She happened to come to us on a number of different occasions. I mentioned hydroponic growing of the fodder. This is the girls learning about it. That's where we grow our hydroponic food for the cows. Um, they they enjoy looking at all the piglets and the animals and so forth. So you do get to see them. They basically do entertainment. We run we run programs where we'll do cultural events on site, and you'll have the opportunity to participate in them, where they'll do everything from it must be shrunk down here somehow. The dancing. We have some traditional, what they call bomas, or
Hmm.
their houses, and so you can see how they actually live. In this case, we have some tourists that are learning some of the traditional dances and the singing and so forth. Again, we try to get participation with with our guests and so forth. As I said, the girls love to perform
Yeah,
and sing, and so they'll sing both traditional Maasai and some English songs that you might recognize. Um, so it's always a great experience to be with the girls when they're singing.
yeah.
Um,
There was a video. I think I don't know if it's Jesus Loves Me. There was some song, and my kids were actually watching the video this morning and singing along with them. So, talk about bringing two worlds together, right? And this is going to give people just a chance to experience, and really experience something they would never before in a way that actually, truly does bring an impact. So,
it,
just
yeah,
to be
in
able to,
fact, that one video that I think you watched was one of our donors' daughter was in a car accident, and she was recovering in the hospital. And I happened to be there at the time. He was a good friend of mine, so I had the girl sing to her. And so that and the girls were extremely appreciative. They keep in touch with what's going on and so forth. So it is um, it's an impactful time. To say, I think if you ask the first group that's just leaving right now or just left, they'll say that it was an emotional goodbye when they
I
left.
bet.
Um, the other thing that and we talked about the Maasai Culture Center, where you get to experience everything from a traditional Maasai barbecue, where we will barbecue a goat, um, to campfire stories with some of the elders, teach you about spear throwing and bead making, and there's all kinds of workshops to immerse yourself in the culture. But the main star of the area is the safaris and the
Hmm.
animals. In fact, um, these pictures all came from the guests this week. Let me pull up. Um, the, One of the guests was big into birds, and you can see by the
Hmm.
pictures. But um, this is in one of the parks. It's about 30 minutes from us. And what's always amazing people is how close you are to the animals. This
Hmm.
is he's the person that took this picture isn't with a telephoto lens. He is pulled up in a car underneath that tree. And so I'm not exactly sure why this female lion doesn't eat them,
Right.
but they don't. And I've sat there. As I said, you get pretty close to them. I thought that was an outstanding picture.
That's incredible.
Now that is, he's got it zoomed in a little bit, but
yeah,
the birds, the pictures he's taken, is a rare picture of a cheetah. The animals are very, you're not going to see them anywhere else in the world in the wild. This is their environment. As I said, he's big into birds, that took these pictures, but seeing all the different species and so forth, prides of lions, crows, all kinds of animals, warthogs. It's a great experience. You'll never see anything like it in the world. Going to one of these types of safaris. So there are 4 major parks that are within striking distance as a day trip. This is Tarangire. It's about 45 minutes to an hour away. The Tarangire is a river. And the national park is is around that river. They drew the boundaries of the park when they created these to basically where do the animals live and migrate to. This watering hole with elephants is actually on the way to on the road on the way to our center, but it's probably about 15-20 minutes down the road from us. But these are just wild elephants walking around.
I mean, guests are really going to see things that they will never.
You're going to see wildlife. You can't avoid it.
You cannot avoid it.
And so when they come and we let's say you're doing a day trip safari, looking for as a picture of, we basically box up lunches, and we send you out with boxed lunches to eat at the park. We have relationships with a number of guides, and the guides know the parks. They are licensed. They have eagle eyes. They can figure out where the animals are, and tell them what you're looking for, and they'll find it for you. So that's the one park. The crater, Ngorongoro Crater, is another area that's a very large caldera that's about 12 miles across, and in fact, a whole ecosystem inside there, because the animals, once they're in, they can't really get out. And then there's Lake Manyara, again, 30-40 minutes away. Serengeti is about a 4-hour drive, so that's an overnight trip.
Yep.
What people will typically do there is they'll do that on the way in or the way out of the center. So that's the as I said, kind of the main event, where a lot of people, one of the reasons they go to East Africa is to see the beauty of the parks and the animals. And like I say, I've been around the world, many different places. This is unique, and they always say that Africa calls you back. It's hard to only go to Africa once.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things to do. We talked about the culinary journey there, from the standpoint, it is farm to table, literally. And you get to go walk across the street to the farm and see what's going on. The girls helping the farm. That's a daily's harvest of cauliflower and cabbage. So I guess from that, I will, unless you guys have other questions that I forgot something, Tiffany.
No, I think I think it's a good segue into kind of the last few, if you want to maybe scroll down or to the next slide a little bit, to really around, who is the guest of the EcoLodge and what does that experience look like for them? So this is just an example itinerary, of a couple of days. But if you go to the next slide, just at a high level, right, I was kind of mentioning there is this big rise in purpose-driven travel. And, really the reason behind that, I think you have this generation of people that they want luxury. They don't want to forsake the creature comforts of home, but they want to have their time and money spent on something that means something, right? Like yes, you can sit around on a beach and, have your cocktail and that's that. But, if you want to really change your life, change someone else's life, leave this place better than when you started. It's these kinds of experiences that I think people are really craving. And they are looking for destinations, brands, organizations where they feel like, it is not only authentic, but again, they can directly see where their money is really impacting it. So they want this level of meaning. And obviously the ecoVillage and the EcoLodge, is answering that call in ways way more than what I think anyone else is doing. So, I know Bruce and I in our conversations have kind of thought about, there's sort of like three different, I guess, types of ways you could experience the EcoLodge and villas. So if you go to the next one, many people who go to Africa, this Africa is bucket list, and Africa's huge. So there's obviously lots of different ways to experience Africa, whether it's going to be South Africa, Tanzania, the Seychelles, it's people only have so much time. So oftentimes people are putting together, a much bigger trip. Maybe it's more, 14 to 17 days, something like that. It'd be a very easy add-on if someone wanted to add on to an existing itinerary or incorporate it into an itinerary where they want to experience the EcoLodge, but maybe they want to stay 2 to 4 nights. So it's an easy extension off to a trip that you already have. And, it just kind of highlights there on the slide a little bit, what you can do when you're there. So if you're already doing safari in a different place, but you really want more of that cultural aspect, you want to stay at the EcoLodge, you want to meet the girls, you can absolutely do that with something like this, right? Stay, 2 to 4 nights and just add that on to an existing itinerary or something that you're already building. The next one is, go ahead.
Can I interrupt for a second
Yeah,
and talk about Tanzania versus some of the other countries?
yeah,
Tanzania does a horrible job of promoting itself. I believe they have the best parks. They have certainly the most renowned parks. But when people think safaris, they think South Africa, or they
yep,
think Kenya, maybe Uganda to see a lot of the apes and the monkeys. But you'll see all of those and more. And Serengeti is an experience there's nothing like it. The beauty of it, watching a million wildebeest in a migration is something you can't imagine what it's like. But for some reason, I think the reason is they're lousy at PR. Um, Kenya and other locations end up with a better. But if you ask people who are experienced, the Tanzania has some of the best parks in the world
yeah.
to go to, and it's becoming more and more popular now. But I just want to bring that about why Tanzania.
Yeah, and I think that's great, and I think hopefully the EcoLodge will help put this a little bit more on the map. The second sort of, I would say, type of traveler is actually what I'm going to be doing with a small group here coming up, and that's really making the EcoLodge my home base. So this would probably be more of like a 5 to 10 night type of stay, but you're staying at the EcoLodge the whole time, and like Bruce mentioned, there are day trips that you can take to the safari park. So I think we're going to try to do 3 when we're there. And like you mentioned, if you do Serengeti, we can coordinate that, but it's probably going to be more of an overnight. And you get a good combination of the immersion, the cultural center, spending time with the girls, and you can go to the parks from there. So again, that's sort of, 5 to 10 nights, give or take, but that would be a second way that a guest could experience this. The third way is, I think you're seeing this rise too in people that want a vacation, but they want to couple that with a volunteer experience. And this is where this is an incredible place to do that because, again, you can stay and experience the EcoLodge. You can do those day trips, but you can actually stay, right, Bruce, and volunteer. They could stay,
Sure.
a couple, 3 weeks at MGRC and really volunteer their time with the girls.
Right. In fact, in that picture is Cami West, and she typically comes maybe 2 times a year, for sure, 1 time a year, and she'll stay for 3 weeks and just enjoys spending time with the girls. And she developed personal relationships with them. Enjoys teaching them crafts and so forth. So yeah.
So it's you could even split your time between the EcoLodge, and I know you have a place where volunteers stay as well. if someone didn't want to, spend their whole time at the villas, obviously it'd be great if they did, because all those proceeds are going to go to the girls. So that's ideal.
Well, and the volunteer digs, if you will, are pretty Spartan.
So once you stay in a villa, you are not going to want to go back to the volunteer quarters.
Yeah, that's true.
Once you've had a taste. But no, we'll go ahead and wrap up here. But like Bruce mentioned, the EcoLodge is just opening now. So Bruce, I know we're taking reservations for all the way into next year. Even typically, again, the average person, when they plan a trip to Africa, that's typically 12 months out, if not longer, maybe 18 months. Obviously, there's space now if someone wanted to experience it sooner, but we're able to do reservations, further out too, and really kind of get those trips planned. So obviously, they can contact me. I am happy to organize, whether it's an extension, a full Africa trip outside the EcoLodge and then staying at the EcoLodge as an extension, or like one of the other components that we talked about, having the EcoLodge be your home base, or even combining it with a volunteer experience, which, I would work closely with Bruce on that. So if anyone, have any questions, go ahead and contact me. But I think this is beyond exciting. This is beyond, I think the next level and next generation of, how you run an organization like this, combining it with the business aspect. So I will be experiencing it myself. Stay tuned for more pictures, more firsthand encounters, so people can really see firsthand what this is like. So I'm just excited to be a part of it as well.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Bruce. I appreciate your time and you coming on here. All right.
And everybody's welcome to come experience it. We really want to show off our capabilities, and again, you'll be part of a great cause. That that we're not trying to solve hunger for Africa, but you will make an impact to these girls' lives and the girls that come behind them. So, again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.